Here we are, everybody, on Heroes Live. It's a Monday night, and we've got a good time tonight. I've got Tom Lee with me, and it's a Thursday night, isn't it? I don't even know what night it is, and I'm very excited, very excited. I'd like to talk a little bit about our donors real quick. Our master-rated donors, Williams, Jackman, Calderon, Evans, Cobos, thank you so much. Our senior-rated donors, Newton, Diaz, Shrum, Fernandez, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. We really appreciate our donors. And Joe says, hey, what's up, guys? He's watching. Thanks so much. We appreciate you guys supporting Heroes Live and what we're doing. We're trying to, get our memories told before we get too sick. To tell them. And so I'm here with Major retired Tom Lee, and we're going to tell some stories tonight, and I'm excited about it. If you would like to support, please support at formerforce.com. We definitely appreciate it, and would take any support that you might send our way. Thank you very much. Let's see. We're going to bring Tom in here. Major retired Tom Lee. Thank you, sir, for being with me. I really, really appreciate it. It's very exciting to be here with you. We're going to start off with, I'm going to show this video, sir. This is a tribute video I made to you, and then we'll go from there. But Major Tom Lee, everybody, Canadian artilleryman.
Built this thing from the ground up out of nothing. No flight plan, no manual to be bound. You and I, we're driving in the dark without headlights, trying to find our way. It's hard telling where we'll be in the coming days, but I'll be there with you. It's hard telling where we'll be in the coming days, but I'll be there with you. I'll be here with you. Built a wall around my heart to stop the bleeding. More than made of all the words that I should have said to you. And we're walking through the fire and the smoke clouds, trying to find our way. It's hard telling where we'll be in the coming days, but I'll be there with you. It's hard telling where we'll be in the coming days, but I'll be there with you. I'll be here with you.
All right, everybody. I am here with Major Tom Lee. Hey, sir.
Hey, Will.
Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I'm so excited to have you and talk to you. It's been, oh my gosh, 15 years or so since we've really even had a conversation. Isn't that really sad?
It is. I mean, a couple messages back and forth and stuff like that off Facebook, but to see you in person, this is great.
I know it is, sir. So I knew and know Tom Lee because we spent almost 3 years of every work day side by side, from the smoking area to the parking lot to everything we did. If it was work related, it was me and you. And I'm so honored that you didn't bury me in the desert somewhere out there, because I know it had to be rough, right? I enjoyed you. I love you. Where are you from? Obviously, you're Canadian, right? And that's like almost American.
To a Canadian. Just
I
go.
know, I know. It's actually probably, if I think about it now that I say the words, it's probably one of the most insulting things actually I could say. So please accept my apology. I did not mean to
I'm
insult
not
you.
insulted.
I love you.
That was in jest, man. But seriously, Canadians, Americans, geographically, what was it? I think it was Kennedy said, geography made us neighbors and history made us friends, or something like that. And he was right.
Amen. 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 So where are you from in Canada? Tell me what it's like where you're from, and what it was like growing up and stuff,
Okay, well, now, since I've retired, we live in the city of Kingston in southern Ontario. So just across the lake, basically, from upstate New York. I grew up in a little small town about an hour's drive from here, a little town called Colburn, little farmer's town. And yeah, I mean, beautiful part of the country. Kingston itself, where we're living now, is one of the older cities in this part of Canada. Some largely by the United Empire Loyalists that left the U.S. after the American War of Independence, or Revolutionary War as we call it. But I mean, the history goes back a lot farther than that. The first Europeans would have been the French that settled here, and it's been an important center for our First Nations folks for time immemorial, sort of thing. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. So is it like farmland or forest or
well, Kingston's a decent sized city. It's about 130, 140,000 people in Kingston itself. The surrounding area is largely small towns, agriculture, farms. But I mean, we're only a couple hours drive from the big centers like Toronto, Oshawa, heavily industrialized big city, right?
Right. Okay. That's cool. So what was it like growing up? What's your memories as a kid of growing up?
Oh, gee. Well, like I say, Colburn, really, really small town. It's one of those things, blink twice and you'll miss it, sort of thing, right?
Right.
But,
Right.
It was a good place to grow up. It was a great place to grow up as a kid. Great for if you're into outdoors activities, that kind of thing. Lots of wide open spaces. Yeah, how to describe it? It's like small town anywhere, right?
Right. So were you running around in the neighborhood, or were you running the fields with a BB gun and a 22? Were you a rabble rouser kid that was getting in trouble every day? Tell me about little Tom,
Oh, a little bit of everything, I guess. I mean, like I said, growing up, earliest memories is things meeting up with my first friends. Ended up playing ball hockey on the street and that kind of thing. Or, there was always a party going on someplace or something like that. But some of the different sort of stuff, we did actually go out in the local woods and build a log cabin for ourselves. That was our little fortress, sort of thing, right?
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Got up to foolish stuff out there, sort of thing, right? But yeah, one of my buddies stole a bunch of his dad's beer, and that was the first time I ever got drunk, and it was not pretty. But
oh, that's great. How old were you?
about 13 or 14.
Oh, that sounds like a similar story. That sounds similar.
Yeah, I
You
think,
probably.
most young kids, they do silly stuff like that sometimes, right?
Amen. Hey, Paul Riley's here. He says, "Howdy,
Hey,
Tom."
Paul.
Remember? Yeah. What a wonderful boss he was for us, right?
Yeah, he was great.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So did you do good in school? Were you a good student? I mean, obviously you're smart. So did you apply yourself?
Most of the time. I guess I would say I was an indifferent student. It was always the case for me that if I could see a purpose to it, then yeah, I got this, no worries. But if you're just writing big formula across a blackboard or a chalkboard that I don't see an application for, then I lost interest pretty quick.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I was struggling in math class in, say, grade 10 or grade 9 or whatever, I'd go to my electronic shop class using complex formulas and calculating, building radios, whatever, and I was acing it because I understood, hey, I see a point to this sort of thing, right?
Right, right. That's cool. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, many things. I mean, I went through all the stuff that a young kid from our generation, you grow up thinking you want to be a policeman, a firefighter, fighter pilot in the Air Force, whatever sort of thing, right? So I went through all of that kind of stuff, and always did have a real interest in military life. And hey, that's where I went in the end, right?
Yeah, that's great. So, like how did you end up making that decision? What was it? Did you enlist first and then become an officer later? Isn't that the way it works? Or tell me about that.
Well, in my case, because I wasn't the most studious, I couldn't join as an officer because you have to have a degree and go to either a civilian university and join the military with a degree or get accepted into the Royal Military College. Either way, my grades weren't good enough. They were okay, but they weren't outstanding sort of thing, right? So I joined as a
Right.
military.
Excellent. Tell me about that.
Well, that was pretty good. At the time, thinking back to 1978, there wasn't in Southern Ontario. We were going through a major recession slash hard economic time. There weren't any jobs. There just weren't, you know. So the Army's offering the proverbial roof over your head and 3 square a day sounded pretty good to me, you know. I mean, some of the time that was canvas overhead, and the 3 meals a day were MREs, or we call them IMPs. But hey, it was still a roof and 3 square.
Amen. 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 Were you concerned about like when I joined the Army, I really didn't care about dying. Like if I figured if I died, I died. No big deal. Was there some kind of a concern about serving your country and being prepared to give your life for your countrymen?
You know what? No, that really wasn't. In fact, that was kind of almost like an attraction, not the idea of dying, but serving my country was a very big deal to me.
Amen.
As a kid, I grew up listening to my dad and his family and his buddies when you could get them to talking about stories of World War II or the Korean War, whichever one they were involved in. And it kind of instilled the idea into me that serving your country was a good thing. That was something you should aspire to, right?
Right.
And, of course, also, like I said, growing up in this little tiny town in Ontario, I wanted to see something bigger in the world. I wanted to be a part of the big picture sort of thing, right?
Right.
And to travel, to meet people, to see the world, to do, all the cliche things, right?
So you joined. Tell me what basic was like, and going through your training and stuff. Were you you were good at it, right?
Yeah, I quickly realized that I had found my niche, or whatever you want to call it. Recruit training was, I joined, like I said, October 78. And the recruit training at that time was done in a place called Cornwallis in Nova Scotia. So one of the few times I'd ever even been out of my home province. The next thing you know, I'm loaded on this big old 707 flying down to Halifax, and from there on to Cornwallis to do our recruit training. And that's the same old basic military training that any Army does. The spit and polish, learning weapons handling, all that kind of thing. So just the very basics. That was at the time about 11 weeks of training. So a lot heavy on the physical fitness, heavy on the dress drill and deportment, weapons handling drills, that kind of thing. And then from there, traveled out to Shiloh, Manitoba, out west, to the home station of the Royal Canadian Artillery to learn my basic artilleryman's skills. And started off at that time. The Canadian Artillery was formed such that you'd have 2 gun batteries and an air defense battery, all part of the same regiment. So when you went through your basic training, you learned first on the old 105 C1 howitzer. The regiment itself was equipped with the M109A2 at the time. So at the end of the basic artillery training, you would do another segment learning conversion onto the M109. And then my first posting, once I finished my basic artilleryman's training, was to the air defense battery within the regiment. So now I had to learn a couple of new weapon systems. The blowpipe was a shoulder-fired man pads, a lot heavier and bulkier and more difficult to use than, say, the Red Eye or Stinger that the U.S. forces use, but still, man pads. And the old 40mm Bofors gun. And that was an amazing piece of kit, but I mean, I climbed up on it the first time and looked at the King Cipher stamped on the barrel. And on the bottom, underneath the King Cipher, it was stamped 1943, and I just about cried. I thought, my God, my dad used this in the Second World War. But
wow. Oh, wow.
It was absolutely awesome in the ground roll, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah, right? That Bofors cannon, I was just reading about it the other day. It would just mow stuff down. It just mowed stuff down. Wow. Yeah, it's a big old projectile coming at you.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Kind of a little funny story, if you will. One of the first time I was ever out in a live fire camp with this thing, we were firing at the aerial targets. They had some problems, so we had a lot of ground targets set up at various ranges, a kilometer or 2 down range sort of thing. So the sergeant at the time directed me to open fire on specific targets, and after about 5-6 rounds, the target was gone. It was just obliterated. So I'm looking at him, what do I shoot at now, Sergeant? He said, shoot the damn hill. So I did. You could just see it through that hillside down till it was flat level sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I grew up with the Vulcan, and it was 20mm, and it was a beast.
Absolutely.
Oh wow.
Much higher rate of fire with the Vulcan, though. I mean, the rate of fire for the Vulcan was, when it was working well, about 120 rounds a minute.
Right.
Compared to what the Vulcan was spitting out.
Yeah, it was hard to keep that thing loaded. So tell me about being having so many weapon systems under your belt and learning so much so quickly. Tell me how that affected you. What did that open doors? Was it daunting? Was it something that you reveled in? Tell me.
Well, it was exciting. I mean, you were always learning something new, and a whole different concept, of course, when starting off as a field artillery gunner and then learning air defense. And after that, it was constant development. And the first, I guess, 4 or 5 years of my career was like that. It was a constant one developmental training after another. So, you go from recruit training to the basic artillery training, then you get posted to the regiment and you have to learn 2 new weapon systems. And then as part of the regimental training in the schools and within the regiment, you're learning everything, driver, track driver, basic communicator, advanced communicator, artillery technician, and it just kept going on. So you were never really bored. You didn't spend a lot of time sitting on the gun box kicking your heels sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and you had so many different systems. So there's a question: if you had to go back and fight with one of those systems again today, which one are you going to go man and operate if you had to go fight?
Oh. Well, I mean, if I was going to fight today, I'd want something a whole lot newer and more modern than what I used back then.
I know, but you got to go man something. What you going to go man?
We had a is now a museum piece. You know, it's time to retire when every weapon system you ever were trained on is now a museum piece. But I think my favorite one was the ADAS, the Air Defense Anti-Tank System. That was
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. So it's interesting. My dad actually worked on that in some way. He was part of the contracts for that system. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's the air defense anti-tank system that was made, and it had a beam rider missile that you fired it and it rode that laser beam and would go kill a tank or a helicopter. It was pretty cool, right?
It was.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it had a good reach out, 10-kilometer range, Mach 3 missile, so it's fast
Yeah.
and absolutely devastating. Whatever it hit, it was going to destroy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The ADATS. That was the precursor that the Army thought that was going to be the linebacker. Be the thing. But Canada was the only folks that actually bought the system, I believe.
Yeah, I think they sold something like 4 shelter-mounted versions to Thailand or something like that, but that was it. So it got very expensive to keep this thing going.
Oh
Spare
yeah.
parts were real expensive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So tell me about Private Lee. Did you get in trouble? Were you the star soldier? Did you find yourself standing out in any way or trying to shirk back?
As a very young soldier, like I mentioned earlier, I found, calling isn't the right word, but I found something that excited me that I was into. Um, so I really worked hard and learned as much as I could. I excelled in all of the training courses that I was sent on, whether it was weapons training or communications or technician. Because I was motivated and interested, I really did well at it. And, typical young soldier stuff, you're always going to find yourself doing stuff that might not have been the smartest thing in the world to do, but at the same time, not to the detriment of my Army career sort of thing, right?
Right. Do you remember getting in trouble for anything, or like one time I was in basic training and my buddy had his dust cover open on his weapon when we were standing in line, and they had told us no talking. I tried to get his attention to tell him that he needed to fix his dust cover. Well, I got smoked for trying to help my buddy out. So I was just wondering if there was a time where maybe you were like stuck your foot in your mouth or something and got smoked or.
Yeah, we always do that. I do have a funny story for you. Like I said earlier, the Canadian artillery regiments at the time were formed a mix of gun batteries and anti-aircraft air defense batteries. And being in the air defense battery, what it meant was a lot of times you would go out in the morning and you would do your air defense skills. You'd bring your kit back in, you do running maintenance on it, you deploy that evening with the field artillery side.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes when the field artillery batteries were out there, they'd be training militia units or whatever, kind of like your National Guard. And we sometimes would get tasked to play enemy force. So this one weekend, they were out training the reserves, and my troop got tasked to play enemy force in their little exercise. And that's great. So we go out there and drive up, 500 meters or so short of their gun position, dismount, move in on foot. And we decide we're not allowed to go anywhere near the actual guns or anything that could cause problems, because there was live ammunition stacked up behind them and that kind of thing. But what we decided to do was we'd go out and we'd steal the gun markers that they used as aiming posts for aligning the guns. And so they'd be all messed up, they wouldn't be able to carry out their missions and that kind of thing. And we thought it would be a whole lot easier because these things are spread out quite a distance. You've got a battery of 6 guns out there, so the gun markers are stretched out, 800 meters from one side to the other. we didn't want to walk that far, so we decided we were going to steal one of their trucks. At the time, we were driving the what we call 5/4 tons or 1 1/4 ton Chev pickups, basically militarized versions of them, and they all had one key fits all. So we had the key for our truck, so we just used to steal one of theirs, and we went ripping down the gun position out in front, grabbed all the gun markers and everything. The problem was we didn't check who was in the truck. And then we hear this roar out of the back of the truck. I'm gonna kill you! And we, oh my God. So we've been four-wheeling and bouncing through the air on this truck all across the field. And that roar was our battery sergeant major, a guy named Vic White. And we were all terrified of this guy. He was like,
Oh
God.
no.
Oh yeah. He and the battery quartermaster were both sleeping in the back of this truck that we stole. Huh.
Oh no.
Shit. Now
Oh
what do
no.
we do?
Oh
So we stop the truck, we bail out, nothing but elbows heading back
Right.
to get out of there. Trouble is, Vic White was the battery sergeant major's name, and he knew exactly who we were. So we spent the next week spit polishing his truck. You could have eaten off that engine. We steam cleaned it and everything.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm here with Major Retired Tom Lee, everybody. I hope you guys are having a good time as I am hanging out. We've got actually a live audience, sir, watching us. Say hi to Major Lee if you know him. If you're here, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Remember that formerforce.com is supported by you guys, the donors. We got a message from our lawyer. We are officially approved to begin the process for our non-profit status. Yay. So happy. Joe and I are excited about that. The lawyer also gave us another message, said it takes money to become a nonprofit. So please give to formerforce.com. This is Joe and I putting this together, and we're talking to heroes. And everybody's a hero, right? My mom's a hero. My dad's a hero. My sister's a hero. My daughters are my heroes. My granddaughters are my heroes. And Captain or Major Tom Lee is my hero also, and he's here with me. And I'm so excited, sir, to have you here. Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate it very much. Tell me about like becoming a sergeant, becoming a leader, becoming responsible for somebody more than just yourself. Was that I know it was a critical time for me. Was that something that affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was huge. And making the transition from being just one of the guys to becoming a leader, whether it's just a detachment commander in charge of 3 or 4 men, or eventually becoming a section commander, it's a real challenge and real reward when you get it right, when you make that connection with your soldiers, and you get the buy-in and motivate them to get the mission done, and that's huge.
Yeah, you say something critical there, getting their buy-in, right? You have to find a way to allow your soldiers to allow you to influence them, right? Your soldiers have to buy into the plan of your leadership, and if they don't, you're going to have problems from day one, right?
Absolutely. It's biggest. What does it say? The art of leadership is the art of influencing human behavior to get them to do what you want, the way you want it done, sort of thing.
That's
And
something very close.
it's different with everybody. Everybody has their different things that will motivate them more than another. Everybody has to get the buy-in that everybody understands the duty that we've been given a job, we've been given a mission. Everybody understands that. But to get them to really want to do it and to give it their level best, you've got to show them that you're there for them too. That you're not just absolutely mission motives. I used to say the 3 M's: my mission, my men, myself, in that order. if you take care of the troops and you make sure they understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, they're going to get it done with or without you.
Yeah. The why is important sometimes if you have time to tell it, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I hated when I first joined up. I hated being told, do it because I told you to. Okay, great, I'll do it. Don't count on me to put the extra effort in, but yeah, I'll do it.
Right. Right.
But if I
One of the
understood why, it made all
yeah.
the difference.
One of the things that I learned, and it took me a while to figure it out, but there's a lot of importance in the commander's intent, right? When you look at a op order or you look at what's going on, if you think, what's the intent here? Why are we doing this? Like, even if you're painting rocks in the desert to turn over the next day and paint the other side a different color, even if you understand, oh, this is just an exercise to teach us about painting rocks and to piss us off, and you just do it, because that's what it's all about sometimes. And so the commander's intent was important. I thought what do you remember a particular soldier that tested you as a leader and that you were able to overcome or help or influence that they came to become a success? Do you remember somebody like that?
Oh boy. I mean, to an extent, you have some of that influence effect on just about everybody you meet, one way or another. Um, to pick one particular person out that it could say, yeah, absolutely, that that's a little bit more difficult. I'd like to think that most of the soldiers that I led at one point or another, I had that influence to help them move on. Um, I guess, I think back some of the. I spent some time in a reserve unit as the regular force cadre to a reserve unit in Pembroke, Ontario, north of here, and there were several of them that were just young soldiers when I was there, as first as a sergeant major and then as a captain eventually, and there were several of them that were volunteers. They were corporals, as you would say, and they've gone on. Derek Prendergast is a fellow that he's a colonel now over in with the NATO Joint Force out of Joint Readiness, yeah, NATO force operating out of Italy. So you see, and Derek is just one example. I mean, this guy's good. He's done really, really well. Um, but there's quite a lot of fellas and girls that at one point or another I had a hand in training or influencing them, and they've gone on to do extremely well. I mean, you can even think just back to the basic officer training that you and I ran platoon after platoon through in Fort Bliss, and there's a lot of those folks that have gone on and excelled.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is amazing. I talked to Eric Aldridge not long ago. Do you remember him,
Yeah,
Lieutenant Aldridge? He was on our remedial PT program back in the day. You and I were doing PT with him twice a day
yeah,
at some times. Remember that? And he
I
said,
do.
yeah, he says he credits us with helping him. He credits our taking extra time and not, doing what might have been easier to do to kick him out or to not let him meet the standard or whatever. Because he was having trouble academically and physically at a couple points. And it's just neat to talk to him and have him tell his story like you're telling, and to look back and to see how much of a difference you and I made in his life. If you haven't watched that, you should watch it. It's really neat to hear him talk about it.
I didn't know you'd done an interview with Eric.
Yeah.
I remember Eric is a great guy. He
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
always gave it his maximum effort, and Eric's a big man, real big guy. But man, he could pump it out. He could still PT, and there was no quitting the guy. If he
Right.
struggled with anything, he would work at it hard until he mastered it. Right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He's just amazing, amazing family and amazing life and stuff. It's wonderful the folks that were brought into our life during the
Absolutely.
time when we were together. The I hate to jump forward, but we're there. Gosh, the people that came through our classroom are legends. Just absolutely the most amazing American and foreign other countries. It was just a total international awesomeness group of people. We had very few problems and very few issues with our lieutenants, and we had such a great time together.
Yeah, that was, you know, some of the best years of my career. Some of the most rewarding it was to work with yourself and all those young officers that were coming through, and to watch them grow just in the short time that we were with them, and then to hear about what they went on to accomplish later in their careers. Yeah, you feel pretty good about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, Colonel Jameson is the sitting third of the fourth battalion commander right now. He was one of our students.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, and we have so many students at Legacy. I talked to, oh gosh, I can't even think of his name now. That is a lieutenant colonel. I did an interview with him not long ago. That was one of our students, and of course, James McCormick, right, our war hero.
Yeah.
Is just an amazing guy. He is the president of the National Purple Heart Association or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, he is very active, and I'll never forget the day that he jumped up on that step of that bus and, basically called all of his peers losers and said, "I hope you all get a bunch of privates just like you." I'll never forget that. I will
Tell you
never
what, we didn't
forget
have to worry
that.
about motivating that bunch. They would do it to each other, and that James was awesome at that. He had no problem
Yeah,
at all about calling a spade, right?
oh my gosh! So I'll tell the story. We were doing a road march at Fort Bliss, Texas, out in the desert, and we had not gone that far. It was a couple miles. We're going from one range to another or something. We're going to get on a bus and do something. I don't know, but it was a couple miles. And I didn't see that we had that much of a morale problem. I didn't see it, but apparently he saw it, and he heard grumbling, and he was something happened. But we got close, and we had been on the road march, and he was my age, and he was a former sergeant of first class, so he had already done my job. He had already been a platoon sergeant, and he was there in the officer basic course, and he was a young lieutenant, but he was, again, he had been already been a sergeant first class. He had already been a platoon sergeant, and these guys were lollygagging, and he jumped up, and he was kind of a shorter stature guy, and he jumped up in the bus door, in the open door, and he got up there so he could get a little bit of elevation as everybody was putting their Alice pack down and kind of chilling out from the march. And he got up there and he said, he called them every name you could imagine and told them basically that he hoped that they get a bunch of privates just as lazy as they are, because he was embarrassed. And it was like a patent speech. It was like, I didn't do it justice. He did it really well. I was inspired. I was like trying to get him some doggone general stars to put on him, and let him lead the whole world. It was great. But we had that kind of caliber of people, around us. Let's go back to the Canadian Army, and you're coming up through the ranks. Tell me, you go in the Canadian Army, you become a sergeant major, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, here you can become a captain, right? That's an interesting thing that the Canadian Army has, right?
Well, yeah, they're pretty similar progression routes to what is available in the U.S. Army.
Right.
You can join and go through college, and become an officer that way. You can go through the military college route, same as your West Point. You can go that route. it gets a little different for when you're talking for commissioning from the ranks. You have your, what is it, OCTP, you call that? Officer Candidate Training Program?
Right.
That you can do. We have a similar program, but we also have what we call commission from the ranks. And that system is used to draw experience from the non-commissioned officers, senior non-commissioned officers of the Army, and add their knowledge experience into the officer corps directly. And in the air defense, for Canadian Air Defense at the time, we went from being very small, one battery per artillery regiment, to in the early mid 80s, literally tripling in size in a few months to, about a year, say, expanding with the acquisition of the new anti-aircraft equipment, the twin 35 millimeter and the ADATs and so on. And it was hard to get enough officers qualified to fill out the new 4th Air Defense Regiment, sort of thing. So for a certain period of time, we had a lot of senior NCOs like myself, sergeant majors, that were directly commissioned from the ranks for the purpose of adding that background depth of knowledge and experience to our officer corps.
That's awesome.
The CFR program has always been around in the Canadian Army. It goes back to the days of the British Army. I think the Redcoats, they did the same thing, but much more rarely than what it's done now. But all for the same purpose. You take somebody that has excelled as an NCO and make them an officer and use their knowledge experience, right?
That was awesome. So tell me about becoming, a squad leader and a platoon sergeant and the other upper NCO ranks before you got, your commission. Tell me about that, how that went.
Okay, well, first up was to become what we call a master bombardier. It's roughly equivalent to your E5. Somewhere between your Spec 4 and an E5. Basically, it doesn't directly translate, but it's a detachment commander level thing. So you're commanding 4 to 6 guys, sort of thing, right? What was it you called your course? PLDC, was it? Primary Leader Development?
Yeah.
That your E5
Correct.
course?
Correct. PLDC.
We called that a combat leaders course, or junior leaders course if you weren't in the Army. If you were in the Army, then it was a combat leaders course. If you were in a support trade or the Air Force, it was called a junior leaders course. So that was the first step. I guess that was 1981. So I had about 2.5 years experience in the Army at that point and was sent on this course. Of course, the worst time of year. I think October in Alberta. October, November, miserable, cold. Oh,
Ouch.
anyway, so they sent me out to this place called Wainwright, Alberta, which, yeah, it might not be the end of the world, but you can see it from there, sort of thing, right? Typical Canadian Army Rangers training bases typically are as far from civilization as they can get, way out there. Anyway, tough, very demanding course, again, about 10, 11 weeks long. Really physically demanding, mentally demanding, and I did well at that. In fact, I was the top candidate on my course, which meant that I got an immediate promotion to Master Bombardier, which was, that was pretty great. That was exciting. Like I said, the early years of my career were sometimes like a blur. Everything moved kind of fast, and that was the first step, and almost immediately after that, I was posted over to Germany to the Air Defense Battery at our air base at Baden-Solingen. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the meantime. By that point, done 2 tours in Cyprus with the United Nations peacekeeping, so patrolling the Green Line between the Greek and Turkish Cypriots. So I went over the first time as a rifleman, as a gunner. Got promoted and was immediately sent back over as a second in command of a rifle section, and finished that 6-month tour and was immediately posted over to West Germany. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on at the time, and really steep learning curve. To be newly promoted master bombardier, sent on an operational tour in Cyprus, and my sergeant wasn't always there. I won't go into the whole story on that, but it meant that I went from being a rifleman to all of a sudden, okay, troops, sergeant here, pick it up. We're doing this. We're doing this patrol. We're taking over the rapid reaction force. So we got to haul all the stuff out of the APC and check all the weapons, ammunition, everything else, and then we're going to start patrolling. You learn fast. You're thrown into the deep end sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, it sounds to me like it. Sounds to me like it. Sounds to me like they just kept throwing you in the deep end.
Well, I don't mean that as a negative thing. It's good to be pushed. It's good to be pushed because you learn, because you have to learn, and you draw on the experience of those around you, and the people that you follow. I'm thinking, we had a guy. My first section commander in Cyprus, the first time was a guy named Fly DeAndre, ex-airborne trooper, hard as nails, big, strong man. Hated having to carry him doing the casualty evacuation, carrying this guy that weighed me about like 60 pounds, and I'm trying to carry him. Good God. But, hard as nails, but man, what a guy to learn from. Just amazing person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What can I say about that? And then posted over to Germany, whole new challenge, first time out of the country, basically, other than, I was in Cyprus, but within our own little unit. But to be living 4 years over in West Germany as a young NCO, what a life, 4 years of Breeder and Bratwurst, that was good.
Oh wow! So you got to tell me about when you met your beautiful wife and family and how all that comes as part of it too. Let's weave that into the story.
Okay, well that kind of ties in a little bit. During my 4 years in posted over in Germany, one of the guys I worked with was my wife's brother, Gary. And, I was in Germany from, 83 through 87 or thereabouts. When I came back from Germany, I was posted to our air defense school in Chatham, New Brunswick, up in northern New Brunswick at the time. And every once in a while, I'd still run into Gary because he was working in Gagetown, the major training base outside of Fredericton, New Brunswick. And this one time, Gary says, "Hey, I want you to meet somebody. I want you to meet my sister." I was like, "Seriously, dude? What are you talking about here?" At any rate, so I said, "Sure, why not? Absolutely." And Kath and I met. That would have been, I guess, 1989 or thereabouts, so just before the first Gulf War. And we hit it off. We really hit it off. And I guess I knew that this was somebody I should be really interested in come 1990. There was a couple things happened. First was what we call the Oka crisis in Quebec, with a problem between the Mohawk Nation and the folks from Quebec that wanted to develop a piece of land that they said was sacred to them, and it really got ugly for a while. And they ended up calling out a big chunk of our army to deal with it, to defuse the situation. And Kath was worried that, "Hey, are you being deployed on this?" So I said, "Oh, okay, no, well, I'm not, but it's all good." And then comes the Gulf War, the Persian Gulf War, and again, Kath is calling up and saying, "Hey, are you being sent?" And at the time, it looked like I probably was. As it turned out, there was a number of guys to my unit that were sent, but not me. And that kind of triggered that, you know what? This girl, she cares. And that year, I wasn't sent to the Gulf War, but I was posted to Quebec City, Valcartier, just outside the city of Quebec in the province of Quebec. And that meant that, hey, she was living in Montreal, so I was close to her. And so I started visiting on weekends. By the end of the training, I was actually sent there to learn to speak French. about a year-long course. By the end of that year, hey, we were getting married. So it was quick.
Amen. 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 Learned French and started French kissing. That's great. That's great. I love it. I'm here with Major Tom Lee. Everybody, if you're here, say hi. Gallagher Chafin says that's awesome. We were talking about something going on. Do you know Gallagher?
I probably should, but
It's not
sure.
It's not coming up. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. We do have some folks watching live, so if you're watching, you want to say hi, well, please feel free to do so. We're having a great time, and we're sharing about our lives and the things that are going on, and what's it like getting deployed, like on a peacekeeping UN? I mean, did you have to wear like blue helmets and all that stuff and that kind of thing? Have you been on one of those deployments?
yeah, absolutely. Twice, like as I mentioned in Cyprus. It has its own challenges. It's not like being sent to Afghanistan, but at the same time, it is real operations, and both sides are armed, and you're stuck in between them. And as a young rifleman sent over the first time, it was a huge adventure, right? And you don't really realize just how serious it can be. But there were other times it was driven home very pointedly that, yeah, this is real, and you better know what you're doing. We were conducting patrols, for example, through the old city of Nicosia, the capital city, Nicosia, and there was places there, we're doing patrols at night, and there's places there where you could literally reach out with that arm and touch the Greek line, and that arm, and now you're touching the Turkish side of things. It was that tight trying to get through, and they didn't necessarily want us there.
Oh wow!
So there were some incidents where, yeah, it got the heart rate up a little bit, a couple times, but there was, I think I told you the story of the Turkish soldier that got a little excited at one patrol I did there.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us
Want to hear a
about
war
that.
story? Okay, well, it's not really a war story. It's a peacekeeping story, if you will. The thing is, you have to understand a little background. Turkey and the Greek Cypriots basically went through almost like a civil war almost. There was trouble where the Turkish minority was afraid that the Greeks were going to take their island and form a union with mainland Greece, and of course they didn't want that. And mainland Turkey invaded the island in 1974 and took basically the northern third of the island before the ceasefire was in effect, and that demilitarized zone between the Turkish and Greek Cypriots has been there ever since. And our job as the UN was to keep those two from fighting, because there was a real fear that it could spiral into a much bigger war where Greece proper could get involved. And then you've got two NATO countries fighting it out, which nobody wants that, right?
Right.
So anyway, the ceasefire line ran right through the heart of the old city of Nicosia. Boy, I got a little sidetracked there. And part of our job was to conduct regular patrols up and down this ceasefire line to make sure that neither side was building up their forces, building up their fortifications, that kind of thing, and to keep them separated so they didn't start fighting again. I was sent there in 1979, so this is 5 years after the major fighting is done, but there are still flashpoints. And typically both sides still wanted us there, so typically they would stage a number of incidents early in each rotation that went through to make sure that we understood, yeah, we're still needed there and we're not going to pull out. So anyway, this was beyond my second tour, I guess. I was a master volunteer at the time, and I went out to conduct this patrol. So I went to our observation post, grabbed one of the gunners from there to go with me, and we started conducting this patrol. About say 2 kilometers, kilometer out and back. And we're going through this one place, and this Turkish soldier jumped off his wall, shoved his G3 rifle into my stomach, and started yelling at me. Of course, it's pitch black dark, right? This guy came out of nowhere. And it's funny, in a situation like that, you don't even have time to be scared. I was startled, right? But you don't have time to be scared. You just react to the situation that's going on. And obviously, I stopped cold. I got the barrel of his rifle right there in my belly. They had taught us a few phrases in both Greek and Turkish, so I probably absolutely mangled it, but had a flashlight in my hand and the radio on my back, the old 77-set radio. You remember those?
Oh, yeah.
And tied it to the top of that antenna is a big blue UN flag. So very slowly holding the flashlight out to the side like that, bring it up and shine it on the flag. I told him, what I think I told him was that we're United Nations military personnel. We're conducting a presence patrol. Get out of my way. And, I'm probably lucky that he didn't just get angry and shoot me, sort of thing. But basically, he got scared. And I think I also told him I want to see a sergeant right effing now. And then he really got scared because the Turkish Army's form of discipline at the time was a little tougher than ours, shall we say. He was looking at a pretty good beating at the very least. And I remember him saying something like, the officer spoke English, yes, sir, sorry, sir, jumped over the wall and was gone. And this all took place in the space of, 30, 40 seconds sort of thing, right?
Oh, wow.
So we finished, we did the rest of the patrol, and our observation post was way up at the top of this tower. Climbed all the way up these stairs, sat down, looked at the young gunner that was with me, gave him shit for jumping behind me when the guy shoved his rifle. I'm thinking, what do you think's going to stop that bullet, right? And he said, I had nowhere else to go. Like I said, it was an alleyway, right? And they gave me a cup of tea, and then I realized my hand was shaking like that. Had no feeling of fear whatsoever when it was going on, just startled, a little bit shocked sort of thing, right? But then when you sat down and you realized, damn, that was close, then the nerves set in a little bit, right?
Oh, big time, right?
You do the same thing all over again.
Yeah, it's like you get up and you go on and move out and do the next thing. Golly, that's crazy. So you didn't get shot and you didn't shoot back, so that's pretty good, huh?
Rules of engagement were pretty tough back then. Basically, we weren't allowed to have our magazine on our weapon. Our weapon had to be shouldered, a magazine in the pocket of our combat shirt. And the only way that we were allowed to return fire is if we were literally under effective fire ourselves, which basically meant that your buddy's dead and you're wounded before you can shoot.
Yeah.
Not a great deal.
That's one of the things that I always wondered about, going out under all these crazy rules for the UN or a NATO mission or something with all these restrictive rules of engagement. You're just a sitting duck is what you become. You become like Barney Fife having to dig your bullet out of your pocket,
Well, the whole thing is we're there to keep them from fighting. And if we get involved in a fight ourselves, then we are failed, basically.
Well, that makes sense. I totally get it. I totally get it.
Peacekeeping only works when both sides buy in and both sides want you there. If you're talking about peacemaking, like we did in Bosnia, that's a whole different game altogether.
Amen. So, thanks for sharing that story about, the danger and stuff that you found as you were deployed out there in support of our, our world goals, right? What was it like, courting and getting and building a beautiful, relationship with your wife and a wonderful family? There's got to be a lot of value in that. You're now looking back on how many years have you guys? You and Kath been together like at least 11 years now, right?
Oh, we've been together 30 years now.
I know.
Yeah,
it's great, right? Tell me about building that. Tell me about building that relationship. Was that something that you've done purposely? Are you continuing to build that relationship and family? It looks like it.
Well, that never stops. A marriage, a relationship, you're always working at it. There's always something you can do more or better or new to keep that relationship vibrant, if you will. Yeah. Um, Kathy is absolutely awesome. There's, you know, when you've met your life mate, when you found somebody that makes you want to be that better person all the time.
Amen.
And Kathy is absolutely that for me. She inspires me.
Amen. Amen.
Uh, Military life is not easy on a family.
Right.
So, you know, there's me getting deployed. I'm off on whether it's I'm deployed on operations, I'm sent away on exercises, I'm sent away on training courses for months on end. And there's Kath and the kids back home making it happen. And Kath is taking care of the family because I'm just gone. It's not that I don't want to help, but I'm thousands of miles away, right? And Kath is a rock. She never missed a beat. No matter where I was sent or the hardships, it just didn't matter. It's like I got posted back from Fort Bliss. I got sent to Moncton, New Brunswick. They lost our furniture somewhere in a warehouse in El Paso. We're in a hotel room for like 6 weeks. And we're taking this all in stride. And we finally get our furniture so we can move into our house. And I've got like 2 days before I'm being sent away on a major course, the Army Operations course. So qualification from captain to major in the Canadian Army. And we're living in New Brunswick. My course is here in Kingston, Ontario, so 1,500 miles away. We're not even fully moved in yet. We don't even have our furniture yet. We've got a couple of things that we bought. And I'm being sent away that morning that I was literally being sent to Kingston. A little bit of a wild time. Some guy stole a local high school van and ended up crashing it. Went for a joyride and ended up crashing it into our house at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And fortunately, no real damage to our house. So you got, all this crazy stuff going on. And 6 o'clock that morning, I'm getting on a plane to fly to Ontario. Kat doesn't bat an eye. She just picks up and says, "Yeah, we got this."
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. It was so much fun to get to hang out with your family when you were in El Paso. Of course, Ginger and the girls, I send my love from them to you guys. It was wonderful. It was just a blessing. Tell me about like making a decision to become an officer and how did that affect you? Was that a big deal? Was that something that you were excited about, or you dreaded, or tell me about that transition.
That was a very big deal. It's you're all part of the leadership team, but it's a very different world being a senior NCO to becoming an officer. It's a different animal altogether, right? I was actually offered my commission 3 times before I accepted it. The first time I was a sergeant over in Germany, and at that time, all I wanted to be was a senior NCO. I didn't want to be an officer, and I said no. Then I was sent back to Canada from Germany, promoted to warrant officer, the same as your E7, I guess that would be. And was employed in the school there as an instructor for the senior courses, and then was promoted master warrant officer. We call it sergeant major. You would call it a platoon first sergeant, or company first sergeant, I guess. And again, I was offered, I was marched into the CO's office, somehow under the mistaken understanding that I wanted to become an officer at the time, and I said no. I've worked this hard to become a sergeant major. I want to be a sergeant major. I want to be the sergeant major of a battery and lead troops that way. So I turned it down the second time, which a few people were a little angry about. I don't know why they made the assumption that I would just roll over and become an officer right away, but they did, and they were mistaken. And then after several years as a sergeant major, I had been the battery sergeant major. I had done all those things I wanted to accomplish, and my battery commander walked up to me one day and said, "You know what, Tom? I think you're wasting your time. I think you should be an officer." And at that time, there was no progression for me to go from being a battery sergeant major to what you would call a command sergeant major or regimental sergeant major, as we call it, because the trade was really small. All of those chief warrant officer positions were filled, and nobody was retiring. So there was nowhere to go. They were going to send me back to Chatham to do a job one step down from what I'd already been doing, so somebody else could step up and be a battery sergeant major. So when my battery commander came around and said, "Tom, you're wasting your time," I said, "Yes, sir, you're absolutely right." And I allowed them to put my name forward for commissioning, and much to my surprise, I got it. And I became a captain. So it was absolutely great. And at the same time, there were a lot of challenges. There was a steep learning curve, learning to see and think a little bit differently. And priorities are not quite the same from being a sergeant major to being the captain sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I enjoyed. Yeah, Patty Downard says, "Looking good, Tom. Say hi to Kathy for me."
I will.
So Patty's watching. So thanks for chiming in, Patty, and anybody else is hanging out here with us. We're here with Major Tom Lee from the Canadian Artillery. He's telling us the stories about his life and his family, and we're making memories, and I'm enjoying it so much. Tell me about how that different scope affected you, right? As an NCO, there's a lot of you don't realize it as an NCO, but as an NCO, there's a lot of buffer between you and you really getting in trouble, like going to jail and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As an officer, you're like all of a sudden you're responsible. Like your name's on the bottom line, from the president and Congress and all that stuff. That's what that commission is all about. And there's a lot of different scope, a different view that you're all of a sudden you're looking at. Remember, as an NCO, it's all about the gun and that equipment and that stuff. As an officer, all of a sudden you're responsible for a totally different scope of work and level of responsibility. And you were really good at that. You were really good at looking at both things, because I got to watch you so closely. How did that different viewpoint affect you? Did you revel in it and enjoy it, or did you dread it?
There's not a lot of stuff that I could say ever in the military in my career that I dreaded. There was a lot of stuff that, it didn't make you, oh boy, can I do this? You question yourself. But I couldn't say I dreaded anything. Transitioning from being a senior NCO to being an officer has its challenges. You do look at things from a little bit different perspective. It's all still part of the leadership team that you form. But as a senior NCO, you're so much more hands-on. Whereas being the officer, it's more about setting the conditions for success, leading in a different way. You know what I mean? Personally, I found that a little bit difficult at first, in particular, because I still wanted to be that hands-on guy, and I had to really force myself to know that's not your role anymore. You step back, you set the mission, you provide the direction. Now let them do it. I had a little bit of a challenge with that. I had to be pointedly told a couple times, "You're not the sergeant major anymore. Let me do it." Okay, got it.
Oh,
But,
that's great.
so many great people that it's like giving them the shot without letting them feel the needle. A couple of them did that to me. Sometimes I actually felt the needle, but I probably needed to.
Yeah, amen, amen. So, who was a mentor to you? Who did you look up to in your career? Was there somebody that took you under their wing?
Oh, there was a lot of people. There was a lot of people. I mentioned Vic White. We used to call him Vicious Vic. Huh, what a guy. Uh, but he was the biggest influence on so many of us as very young green soldiers. This guy was absolutely amazing. He was absolutely terrifying, and at the same time, you wanted to emulate this guy. And he had a way about him. If he was roaring at you, if he was yelling and whatever, you're probably okay. You know, you might get a few extra duties. You might get confined to barracks for a weekend or something like that. But when he got quiet and he said, "Right, Lee, get in here, sit down, me son." Oh man, you're done. You're gone. 90 days in the digger minimum. You're in trouble. But
90 days in the digger.
yeah, but he was like that. It's just he had just that way about him. He had no qualms at all about backing down an officer that was doing something really dumb to make sure that the troops didn't suffer because of somebody else's foolishness. And he did it in such a way that there was no doubt in anybody's mind that it was happening, but he would make every effort not to embarrass that officer at the same time. He wouldn't do it in front of the troops. He would haul that officer aside. Um, I mentioned Fly DeAndre, my first section commander in Cyprus. Uh, Depth of experience, knowledge, and just real deal soldier sort of thing that made you want to emulate him. Uh, on the officer side, oh, so many. Dave McPherson is a guy you might remember from, he was, while we were in Fort Bliss together, he was a Canadian liaison officer there.
I remember.
He was one of the first officers that really had a huge influence on me. He had a real nasty habit of booting me out of my comfort zone and forcing me into another challenge. And it's like, God dang, sir, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. He said, yes, you are. You're my guy. And here's how you're going to do it, or why you're going to do it. And I found myself doing stuff. When I first was commissioned, he was my battery commander, in fact, CO of the regiment at the time. And my first job was what we call a BK. I think you'd call that an XO, battery XO, and do things like running the brigade or defense cell within the battery for the battery and that kind of thing. And I was ready for that. I had been trained for all that kind of stuff, and I was quite comfortable in that. And then in the middle of an exercise, a brigade exercise, he comes into the command post and says, right, Tom, your battery commander is gone, self-destructed, whatever. You're my man. You're now battery commander. Wait, what? What? I'm not even trained for that yet, sir. He says, you got it. You can do this. Sure enough, I could. But at the time, it was like, yeah, kicking me out of my comfort zone, big time. But Dave would always lead by the example. He would show, it's not a phrase he used often, show them what right looks like. Dave always did that.
Amen.
Just an absolutely amazing guy.
Amen. So you were his guy. Joe Benson was my guy when I was a first sergeant. He was the guy that I gave all my tough assignments to, and so you're the guy for Dave that he gave all of his tough assignments to, and he got you promoted into the jobs that he needed you there for, so that he could rely on you, and that's a true test of your worth, Tom Lee, is that somebody like that would grab you up and make you stretch your wings a little bit because he knew that you could fly, and that's such a testament. I'm here with Major Tom Lee. He's a Canadian artilleryman. He was a master bombardier. He's deployed all over the world, and he's got a beautiful family. You know, they say there's no atheist in foxholes. Tell me a little bit about your spirituality and what keeps you going on those dark nights when we're walking down the road, or when the bad guy jumps over the wall and sticks the barrel of the weapon in your chest. You know, what is it that keeps you going? You know, is there something you could tell us?
Oh, I'm really not a spiritual guy. I'm just not. Do I believe that we've got a higher purpose? Yes. But I couldn't call myself a spiritual guy. I try to put my faith in, myself, of course. You know, believe in yourself. That's always important. Believe in the people that are around you. People are basically good. There are bad people out there. But people, I believe, by nature, are basically good, and they want to do what's right. I don't know how much more I can say.
So tell me about playing the guitar. I see that seagull behind you, right?
That's a Takamine, actually. Whoops.
Oh, you got a Takamine. Ah, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Always wanted to play guitar, you know. I mean, 30 odd years ago, me and a buddy, Gary Woodable, were over in Germany together. We both bought guitars and told ourselves we're going to become rock band or something like that. Well, Gary became very good at it. Me, I kind of set it aside, and I got married. We had a whole bunch of kids, and it just got set aside. In fact, I sold that guitar, and I didn't pick one up again for about 30 years. But what's that old joke? You know, I always wanted to play guitar so badly. And after I retired, I said, okay, I got lots of time now. I got no excuse. And I'm going to get a guitar, and I'm going to learn. And I guess I've been playing for about 4 years now. And as the joke goes, after 4 years of lessons and practice, I can now play guitar very badly.
Amen. Yay. I love it. I love it. I'm a fledgling guitarist myself and enjoy playing and singing and messing around and making music and stuff. And it's neat to see you with your musical instruments and things. And you have your sword behind you and your different memorabilia up there. What kinds of things do you have that are memorabilia from the military that you cherish? Are there certain things that you have that are important, really, really important to you that like you would grab before you grab something else?
Well, boy, yeah, clearly my officer's sword. You see the little shadow box up above that with my medals, Canadian flag that was flown over the home station, commissioning scrolls, that kind of thing. The picture on, I guess it's my left, that's a memento from my days in Fort Bliss, actually.
Oh,
That's
wow.
a picture that was given to me when I was posted away back to Canada, that you and the NCOs and officers from the Air Defense School presented to me, and that's special. And it's a picture of Captain Louis Millett, leading the bayonet charge up the hill in Korea. And of course, the tie-in being that I guess he retired as a general. I'm not sure, colonel or general, but Louis Millett, at the outbreak of World War II, the U.S. wasn't in the war yet, and he believed that the Germans, the Nazis at least, needed to be stopped. So he joined the Canadian Army first. And then when America entered the war, he transferred back to the American Army, was teaching his soldiers Canadian version of bayonet drill, and that's what he taught those soldiers that he led charging up that hill in Korea. And having met the man and the story, that's special to me.
Amen. Amen. Thanks for sharing. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So do me a favor, brag on your kids for a minute.
Okay. Well, we have 6 kids, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great grandchild. And Kath was married before, so we've got the 3 older children from her first marriage, and then the 3 from our marriage, right? So all of them are, they're good human beings, which is the best thing that any parent can say, is that what they passed on to their children led them to become good people in themselves as they grew up. So our two, in fact, all three of our boys are out west, out in Alberta and British Columbia, and raising families of their own. And luckily for us, all three of our daughters are here in Kingston. In fact, our oldest daughter, Faith, lives just a block away with two of our grandchildren. My two youngest daughters are still with us because, you know what? Nobody can afford a house around Kingston. It's unbelievably how expensive it's gotten. And I was jokingly would call them my starving artists, or they would be if they weren't living with us. But they are just that. They are artists and really accomplished, really skilled. They have their own online comic that they run. They do all kinds of artwork. It's just, they obviously got the talent from their mom, because they sure didn't get it from me.
Oh my gosh, well that's awesome. That is awesome. So what kind of art and stuff do they do?
They do a lot of, call it anime or animation.
Okay, cool.
Comic art, if you will. Yeah.
Oh wow, wow.
That's what they're really into. They do all kinds of other artwork as well, but that's what they're really into. That's their.
Oh, that
their
is
thing.
so cool. That is so cool. I love it. I love it. Hey, I'm here with Major Tom Lee, everybody. I want to take an opportunity to talk to you guys about something that's happening on Sunday. On Sunday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, we're going to be live with Brigadier General Retired Christopher Spillman, the General. The General is going to be here. If you know the General, then you love him like I do. I'm so excited and I can't wait. So set your calendars, set your alarms, check it out. But Brigadier General Retired Christopher Spillman's going to be here with us. The General will be here on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'm so glad. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our donors. We really appreciate those that are supporting Marshall in the Middle, Heroes I Know, and Heroes Live. Go to formerforce.com and you can donate. It's Joe and I, and we're doing this, and we're doing this because one of our, very, very good buddies got sick, and he wasn't able to tell his story, and Maggot. I was afraid he had a tumor, and he couldn't remember what he had just eaten. He couldn't really drive anywhere, but he could remember the old days. And so I interviewed him, and that's where it got started. And Joe and I have continued on from that, and we've created a coin and a box, and putting these memories out on, out there for our loved ones. I wish I had my grandfather's a story on tape. I wish I had his memories, and I don't. But you know what? I'm here now, and I can do something about it. So guess what? I'm talking with Major Tom Lee, and we are hanging out, and we are messing up as I'm clicking the different screens, trying to figure out how I make this work. So bear with me just a second. Let's see, where does that go? Where does that go? I love it. Thanks, Major Tom Lee. I appreciate you hanging out here with me. I'm going to get my act together here. There we go. I couldn't click it. It was. It's interesting what happens here on this interface. So thank you guys. We're here with Tom Lee hanging out. Tom, tell me about the being a major and getting promoted to that level, a field grade officer, and having those extra responsibilities in schooling and stuff, and becoming a leader in your military. Tell me about that.
A little different in my case. By the time I was promoted to major, I had already been a battery commander, 2 different batteries, and I had, as a captain, and I had been sent on my first tour in Afghanistan, and that was, you talk about, I don't know if you call it high points or the real memorable points in your career. Afghanistan was a big one for me because you train all your life to do the real job, and Afghanistan was absolutely it. It was a shooting war, right? And I was sent over to Afghanistan as the second in command of a reconnaissance unit, if you will, that we used to fly the tactical UAVs, spare work, it was called. So this is early days of UAVs when today they're launched by hand and everything else. At the time, it took a unit of 55 soldiers to fully man and equip and operate this system 24/7. So I was coming off that, and I was basically walking down the ramp off the airplane as I was coming home from my tour. My commanding officer met me at the bottom of the stairs and said, "Congratulations, majorly promoted me on the spot." He said, "Oh, by the way, this promotion, it comes with a posting. You're going to Edmonton." So I was posted to the 1st Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group in Edmonton, Alberta, and my job was to run the Airspace Coordination Center for Land Force's western area out there. Very different challenge than what I was used to. Part of a much bigger picture, being part of the brigade staff. And I did that for, I guess it was 2 years I was doing that job. And then the Brigade G1 retired, got posted, I don't recall which, and they didn't have a replacement for him. But my regiment could replace me, so I volunteered to step up and become the Brigade G1, and took on that job for the last 2 years that I was in Edmonton. That was a whole different ballgame. I mean, there's parts of being G1's the fun stuff, sorting out soldiers' pay to make sure they get paid right, make sure they get their medals, and that's all great. But it also came with the other side, dealing with casualty management. And of course, at the time, this was 2008, and we were still heavily involved in the fighting in Afghanistan, and we were still taking casualties. And a big part of my job was to deal with that and to help coordinate getting the right help to the families of the fallen, to making sure my brigade commander was fully prepared and informed when this happened, and dealing with bringing those casualties home when they fell. And you need to have a little bit of a thick skin sometimes to deal with that. And I was always the kind of guy that, I wore my heart on my sleeve, I guess is a way of saying it. So dealing with some of the casualties, and particularly trying to help the families of the fallen, it's not right to say it was hard. It was hard, but it was so important to get it right, I think, was the driving thing, because when they made that kind of sacrifice, you don't want to make it worse, that's for sure. You want to make it as seamless, as easy as possible for those families. That was a big deal.
Right.
And then following that, I was posted back here to Kingston at my last posting in my career, and I was posted into the Canadian Army Doctrine Training Center. It had a different name at that time. It's called Land Forces Doctrine Training System. But I was working for another great guy, an infantry officer by the name of Dave Byer. And my job was what we call capability development. And my job was to make sure that as new kit was procured through the system, my job was to make sure that we had all the training coordinated, lined up, and ready, so that when we got the kit, we didn't just have a new toy, we actually knew how to use it and use it right. And we're prepared to train our soldiers and to transition to that new kit. Really important job, But it was really, it was a staff job. It was paperwork. And I got to the point where, you know what, I recognize the importance, but this isn't the kind of soldiering I joined to do. So 2013, I said, okay, it's time to move on and see what comes next. Is there life after the Army? And I'm happy to say that, yes, there is.
Amen. Amen. So 2013, you looked around and you're like, okay, peace, it's time to hang my hat up. Was retiring a satisfying event to you, or did you feel sad as you walked away?
By that point, I had almost 34 and a half years service. And I had accomplished pretty much everything I wanted to do, been everywhere I wanted to go. At that stage, I wasn't going to get another command again. I knew it because I'm at that age group, right? I'm past the age where they're going to give me another command, and no real chance of being promoted further either, so that I could get more leadership roles that way. And honestly, you get to the point where you're tired. You're tired. Not physically tired. I mean, I'm ready to hang it up. I've done my bit, sort of thing, right? And I was there. So I was ready to transition, and I don't regret it. There's stuff I miss. We always talk about we miss the people. We miss some of the really cool stuff we used to do, rappelling out of a helicopter or whatever, although that makes my back hurt just thinking about it. So you look back at it fondly, and you remember the people that you served with and the things you accomplished, and the things, when I say you accomplished, I mean you as part of the Army accomplished and things you did with those people. And yeah, so maybe it's time to put the feet up a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, right. That's cool. Yeah. And wow, 34 and a half years of willingness to lay your life on the line, and it's not necessarily just for your countries; it's for your buddies and your friends and the folks that are
Well,
part
that's
of the
exactly what it comes
teams.
down to at the end, right? It's all about the
Yeah,
people that are right around you.
yeah, that's what it is. That is what it's about. I enjoyed so much the time that we spent together training lieutenants. Do you remember any stories from back in the, like, do you have like a story you could tell about me? Do you have a martial story? Or do you have
A
anything
Marshall
like that?
story.
Remember it? Yeah, I remember it was Burnley in Canada, and
Oh,
well, all of
yeah.
us that we had First Sergeant Franklin was around for a while.
Keith Maxwell. Yeah,
Yeah, Maxwell. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So many great people. Like I said before, the 3 years I spent in Bliss was some of the best years of my career, just because of that, because of the people that we were working with that were just some awesome people. I keep saying that, I know, but I really believe it, so I will keep saying it. Ah, stories we could tell. Do you remember Lieutenant Fernandez?
Yeah.
Yeah, great young officer. Uh, a little bit funny. Remember how we used to, you and I talked, and you brought up the idea that the lieutenants really need to be leading the PT. We should be leading the PT. The lieutenants should be doing that. So we did that, and I think that was part of the regular program anyway. But you put a real importance on it, and I remember Lieutenant Fernandez put this PT program together for us that one morning. I don't know if you remember it, but we were throwing rucksacks around. We were crawling over and under stuff, and just, man, I was bagged at the end of it. I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I'm going to live through this, but I couldn't admit it because, hey, you know, here you got this young lieutenant out there leading this thing. It's like, okay, if they can do it, we can do it. But
Oh yeah.
a couple of days after that, there was one of the other American officers that were, I think he worked for the maybe it was the Patriot stream. Anyway, the follow on from basic officer course that we did, and real cheerful guy. And we was talking about basically he was making me feel good being there working with the American Army, saying, you know, you're doing a great thing and so on. And it's like, that PT program you run, that's absolutely awesome. That's like, wow, major stuff. And I'm thinking, he was watching what Fernandez was doing. That wasn't my doing. That was all about young Fernandez.
No, that was you. That was you. You inspired that. You know, you're the leader. You got that going, and so that's what. Yeah, that's awesome, sir. That's
Uh,
awesome.
Martial stories, boy. Mostly remembering the FTXs. And you know what? The first few courses we ran, and we were running basically Cold War training, the FTX force on force. And you and Burnley, Steve in particular, said, you know, this isn't preparing our soldiers for what they're going to face in Iraq, in Afghanistan. And I remember you and Steve putting together the plan to transition our final training exercise of the courses from straight force on force to stance training and focusing on skills, checkpoints, short patrols, that kind of stuff that they were actually going to use in their immediate future as leaders in the U.S. Army. That's something that I remember, and that kind of innovation and vision coming from, not from the top down, but from you, senior NCOs, to make your Army better. That's what I remember about you.
I remember. So Burnley and I, right, we're sitting there and we started dreaming about how we could insert the lieutenants into some situation and do more situational training exercises instead of just us going out and just marching around and doing the stupid stuff that I had to do, and it didn't make any sense. And we were led by people like you and Paul Riley and other folks that led us. He and I sat there and dreamed it up and put it together. You know, he's now the post command sergeant major for Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
That is awesome. I haven't heard from Steve in a while, and I knew he was doing well. I knew he was a command sergeant major, but I didn't know he was there.
Yeah, he is. Look, I told Steve Burnley the one of the first days I met him that there's no ceiling to his talent, none. He is amazing. He'd come home, he'd drink a 12-pack of beer every night, and he'd be right there for freaking PT the next morning. I'm like, dude, come on, man. He's like, yeah, come on. But that was him, man, and him and Victoria are just top notch people, just like you and Kath are, and it's so cool to be surrounded by that. You know, Keith Maxwell, Command Sergeant Major, you know, just great people that we were with back then, and I just enjoyed spending that time with you. It was some of the best moments in my career. I learned how to I learned how to be a platoon sergeant by teaching those lieutenants. And, you know, I thought I was a great platoon sergeant before, you know, but that's all I really did was learn how to be a platoon sergeant by teaching. And then I went and became a first sergeant, and I did good, but I was an idiot, you know, like we all are. We're all like, you know, but it was fun. It was wonderful, right? We all had these great careers. You know, I did 22 and spent and moved on, and you did 34 and a half years. What kind of advice would you have for, you know, what would you look at your kids and grandkids and great grandkids and great great grandkids that are going to come from behind you, and because we're going to have this legacy is going to be out there for anybody that wants to watch it. What do you have a message that you would tell to your ancestors about you? And what kind of message you might have to give them?
Oh boy, don't know that that's something I've really thought a lot about. Everybody chooses their own way, I think, is a piece of advice that I would offer them to think on. And the way I chose was perfect for me. I found my calling. I found something that I wanted to do, that I was good at. Doesn't mean that what I did is going to be what they want or need to do. But what I would like to see them do is to find that calling that speaks to them, that they can put their whole heart into and do it to the level best of their ability, and just go for it. Just chase it.
Amen. 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 Chase your goal, right? Find out what that is. You know, that's kind of what happened with me, at least at this phase of my life. I realized when Maggot was sick that I wanted to talk to people and get their stories, and that's led me to Major Tom Lee from the Canadian Artillery Corps here with me, and 34 years of dedicated governmental service to his nation. He's a Canadian and my friend and a wonderful, wonderful leader. You have to, if you've spent any time with us watching, you have to see his calm demeanor and how he was such a good trainer and teacher to our young American and other nations, lieutenants that was coming through the officer basic course and when we were together. And you know, as we get ready to close this out, you know, I want to get any story that you might have that you haven't told. I would love to hear it if you have something that's applicable. The other thing is you've got to call us to attention and give us that salute that you do. I love it. I love it. And sign out, right? You got to, right? I'm an American, so I salute a certain way. You salute a different way, and it's really awesome. And I love you, sir.
It's about the same. We don't do the open hand thing like the Brits do. We just do it a little. Don't call it a little sharper here. It's a very deliberate movement when the hand salute when the U.S. Army does it. With us, it's more about, well, hang on a sec. One difference is that we don't salute without headdress on, right? So I still have that.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it.
So with us, should be standing up when I do it, but yeah, camera wouldn't work, so it's just up and down.
Oh, I love it. Bill. Oh, I love it. Thank you, sir, for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I love you so much. Give Kathleen a big, huge hug from me. I love you guys. Y'all are amazing. And bye, everybody. We have had a great time. We've been here with Major Tom Lee from the Canadian Artillery. I love you, sir. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much, Will. Take care of yourself and say hi to everybody there for us. Huh?
Amen. 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 Amen.